This is probably the most random video on this entire platform, and I'm sorry for everything about this. I hope you can hear me through this microphone, and Yonsi too. He is demanding me to pet him, so we'll do that. The reason I just came home and I just feel it in me that I need to talk about this. This would be a topic I would usually go on Instagram to talk about, but first of all, my phone just died. And second of all, it would be too long for Instagram, so I prefer doing it here. The thing is that I kind of want to talk about something that happened to me, something positive, and then also I talked about it with my therapist this morning, and I just find it really interesting. And I wonder if other people who have ADHD or are on the autism spectrum maybe can relate to this, or people maybe with anxiety. I'm not sure what this story relates to. Okay. All right. He demands more attention, and I understand because I just came home. Okay, so to preface, I'm gonna give you a little context. Until today, today's Thursday. This week and the last week, I was assisting a teacher in a intensive class for German at the university where I study. They offer intensive courses for exchange students. So the students are from all over the world and they just arrived in Zurich for like a semester or maybe a year, and so they want to learn German, right? And this was my first time assisting. So okay, it was new to me. My job as the assistant was, of course, to assist the teacher, meaning I would make copies of things. I would be kind of the one with the administrative tasks. If students had to cancel a class or something, they would come to me. And also, when the students would work in groups, two people, so me and the teacher, could walk around and correct their pronunciation, stuff like that. It's just very useful to have a second person in the room to do that. That's what the assistants are for. That was the situation. The first week, last week, started on Monday, as a week does, and so did this week, as again a week does. Wow, I am so great at explaining. Can't believe I'm gonna be a teacher someday. I don't know if I am. Never mind. If I have a hard time talking, it's because it was an intensive week. Okay, it was an intense week. On both Mondays, I had experienced something that was very new for me, and on the one occasion, I was very anxious, and I'm sorry. Okay. Hey. I'm sorry, we have to rearrange the arrangement. Rearrange the arrangement together. The thing I want to talk about is a comparison between two occasions of me having to do something that was new to me. And on one occasion, I was very nervous and anxious, and I don't want to use anxious, like the word anxious or the description, lightly. And on the other occasion I wasn't, and I wondered why, and now I think I know why, and that's where it gets interesting. Yonsi? Okay, listen. The quality just keeps getting better, so I hope you're grateful for that. So, in the first week, the week started, of course, with us just meeting the students. It was around 25 people per class. My first job as an assistant, as was for the other assistants, was to give this class of new students a little tour around the campus, basically around the university and the university that's close by, because the students would come from both of these universities, one of which is the one I study at. So everything that had to do with my university didn't make me as nervous, but the tour part that made me very, very, very nervous was the part where I was supposed to show them this other university. For people in Zurich, I mean UZH and ETH, okay? Because this doesn't make sense to anyone. So I had to do this tour, right? And mind you, this tour, I didn't have to invent this. There were a couple of places we just had to go and show them that were important, like the administration's office. This wasn't depending on me, like it wasn't on me to decide, but it also wasn't on me to plan. I'm so sorry for the improvisation in this video. I hope you can hear me at all. If not, I understand if you can't watch this video because the audio or anything is too annoying. I get it. Okay, but the situation was this, right? I had to do this tour. That was my main task that day. And that was it. And I didn't have to plan that task. I just had to do it. I had to walk through all those stations basically and show them. And that was that. And I know my university quite well because I've been there for a bajillion years. Just finished my bachelor's degree, so amazing. And the other university, while I do not know it, I do sort of know it. And I also went and checked all the places the day before because so I know, what to show them. Now this Monday from this week, so the second Monday, over the weekend, the teacher got terribly sick. She was in bed with a fever from hell. So there was no way she could teach. She called me on Sunday and she was like, "Can you teach the class on Monday?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, let's do it." So we talked for an hour. She showed me what the plan was, what the program was, and I had to teach the class. Which one of those 2 Mondays do you think made me incredibly anxious? It was Monday number 1. It wasn't the Monday where I had to take over an entire class. I never taught before. I never was a teacher before. This was my first time even assisting. So it sure as balls was my first time teaching, okay? So you would think, or I think that you would think, that one would think, that that would make me nervous and anxious and be like, oh my god, I never did this. Teaching a class a whole day, which turned out to be 3 days, by the way. I never taught anyone, not a language, not German, not anything. I never tested if I know how to explain things to people. I don't know how my way of speaking, if that speaks to people at all. I don't know. You know what I mean? You would think that that would make me more nervous. But no, I was fine. This last Sunday, when I got the call and she gave me the news, we went through the plan, the program, the script, whatever. And I was like, okay, that's gonna happen tomorrow. Now, was I a bit nervous, like before the class started? Yeah, but that was nervousness, a bit of nervousness. The other thing was actual pure anxiety. And I wanted to talk about this anyway, because this anxiety was so physical. I had a stomach ache for 3 days before the last Monday, before the whole thing started and before I had to give the tour. I was very, very tense to an extent where on Tuesday, when this pressure was off and the anxiety stopped because the first day was over, my muscles were sore, my legs specifically, as if I had exercised, and I didn't, okay? I was just like this all the time. Specifically my legs. You should see my calves. I have muscular calves, and I don't train. These are my anxiety calves, okay? It was intense, not good. And that's just the physical part of it. And then you also obviously feel the anxiety, and you have very thin skin in general, and it's not a lot of fun. When these news came around on Sunday that I would have to teach the class, I expected my body to go in full anxiety mode again, and it didn't. And I'm like, am I broken? What's going on? So, long story short, I tried to figure out, because it seems like these are two things that kind of make sense to be compared. Both times it was something new, it was a beginning, and it was something I was sort of prepared for, but not entirely. With the tour, I wasn't entirely prepared for it because I'd never actually given a tour, right? So the whole experience was new to me. I'll finish the sentence and then I'll go play with Yonsi real quick. But the second week obviously was new because I never taught a class, anything. I think one would assume that the second Monday made me much more nervous, right? Because the first Monday, where you just give a tour, that's expected from all assistants anyways. That's just what happens. The second Monday though, the teacher, she asked me, do you think you're up for that? Do you want to do this? If not, we will just have to cancel the class, but that's okay too. If somebody happens to be sick, it happens. Nobody was expecting me to do that. That's why did that make me less anxious? Not at all anxious actually, and even less nervous. Okay, we're cleaning ourselves now and no longer interested in playing, so why would I put this one in? I don't even know. Anyways, maybe this is nothing, but for me, I was like, what's the difference between those things? Because if I figure out why one thing made me super anxious, even though I think it kind of shouldn't, and the other thing didn't, even though I would understand if it did, then maybe I find a way to avoid anxiety or just navigate better around it. You know what I mean? So I tried to figure out what was the difference between those two things. In the first setting, something that I notice is really a problem for me is when I feel like I'm not in control. This means that I don't necessarily have to be the one planning or making decisions or whatever. I don't mean that type of control. I mean control in the form of knowledge. Now, before this course started, I didn't know what was the content of the class. I mean, I knew that it was the lowest, like it was entry level German, but like I didn't see the script or whatever. I didn't know what was like the content of the actual class. This makes sense. They don't send the scripts out to just anyone, like the teachers, because that's copyrighted and that's just not how that works. And yes, a lot of people don't care to see it before because I already speak the language. I like on that level of teaching, there really kind of can't be a question that I can't answer because they're only just learning how to say, how are you? Or I don't speak German, or you know what I mean? So I understand why you don't get all the information. And again, the copyrighted thing. Anyways, so the thing is, I didn't exactly know what was gonna happen on Monday, and it drove me bananas. So we got information sheets that told everyone what was gonna happen on Monday, because obviously the first day is always a bit special. And we got like information sheets. This whole thing made me very nervous, as I already said, and because of that, I wasn't really looking at those information sheets until the weekend before it started because I wasn't ready to face the reality of it. I know that might sound childish or avoiding, because it is, but that's how I deal with things. Something I'm working on, because if something makes me very anxious and it's like weeks away, a thing that helps me actually is looking at it, you know, facing the fear. So I only looked at the information sheets on, if you hear something, it's Yonsi, I don't know what exactly. So when I finally did look at all the information I already had, like gotten via email, I checked that information, and just from the plan of the Monday, like they described how the first Monday was gonna go, and it just wasn't clear to me exactly at what point my thing, the tour, was supposed to happen. This, I think, for a lot of people or neurotypical people, maybe wouldn't be a problem because you know that it happens in the morning at some point. You know it will happen. Like that's the most important part. You know that that's your job. You prepare for that, or you don't, whatever floats your boat, but like you already know that. And just because you don't know if it's at 8, 9, or 10, like whatever, that made me feel so insecure because for some reason I need to be able to see my day ahead of time in, I guess, units. Like I'm a very unit kind of person in general, so I don't know if that's just that. I don't know. It made me incredibly nervous that I didn't know exactly when what happened. And I don't even mean like, oh, 9:15 we do that, 9:20 we do that, 10 we do that. I don't mean that. I don't care about the actual time. I care about the units. First this, then this, then this. When exactly this whole thing happens, I don't care. Just took that earring out because maybe it's annoying. I don't know. I just need to know what happens when, in reference to the other things that happen. I don't need the time necessarily. I need a reference point. And from the sheet I got, like from the information I had received, I wasn't clear if my thing was like the third unit or the fourth. And I was not doing fine because of this. It made me incredibly anxious. I tried to like figure out, because what I like to do in these moments is just lay it out in the different options. Like, okay, what if it's unit 2? Then that would mean that it would be after that and before this and that. And if it's unit 4, then it's going to be after that and that, so that I will see all the options in front of my inner eye and I will be okay with whatever happens. But I didn't have enough information to do that. Now I want to be like clear, this is by no means saying that somebody else did something wrong by not giving me that information or whatever. First of all, because again, I'm sure most people are completely fine with the information or with the amount of information we got. Probably most people would be like, why am I already getting this much information? I'm only paid for these 2 weeks. Why am I already having to deal with this? You know what I mean? It was several pages of information. By no means was it like anyone's fault. It's just that my brain works like this, and I need things to be exact. I do not like it if there is room for improvisation or like whatever, it's just gonna happen. Like, miss me with that. Miss me. Monday morning came and I was supposed to meet the teacher at 8. I went to the place at 6:30 just to have enough time to walk past all the stations again from my tour to make sure I knew what I was doing. And because one building hadn't been open on Sunday because it was a Sunday, and I wanted to check it out. What I do in these moments, I try to get as much preparation and control as I possibly can. So I just grab onto everything. I do extra preparation. I get there 1.5 hours early. Do you know when I had to get up? And I love getting up early, but that's just no. I like to take notes. I like to know exactly what my responsibilities are, what my tasks are, what's being expected of me. And that wasn't clear for me on that first Monday. Of course, in the course of the day, things became clearer and they happened. And as soon as I met the teacher, I was able to ask her, hey, when exactly is the tour gonna happen? And she told me, and it all went fine and whatever. So first of all, anxiety is a beach. Now, why was I fine on the second Sunday when a Monday came where I had to do something I had no control over either? I never taught before again. What's the difference? And I think the difference was, and I talked to this about with my therapist today because I was wondering, and it's just basically the second time it was on me. I don't necessarily have a hard time doing some improv if it's just me doing it on my terms. This on Monday, what we did have, this Monday where I had to teach, I knew what I had to do. I had a program. I knew what was on the plan because I talked to the teacher on the phone and she said, okay, I plan to do this and this and that on Monday. Okay, I knew that. She also told me, hey, if you don't make all the points, if things just take too long, just whatever, that's okay. You don't, this is not a fixed schedule. So I had all the information I needed. I had some time to prepare on Sunday, but I didn't even really use it. I went 2 hours early again on the next day, but that's really all I needed. I usually like to do things in the morning. Afternoons aren't my time. For some reason, it's a big thing for me. And I realized that as I talked to my therapist today, I said, listen, the problem for me, well, one of the problems is the thing on Monday, the giving the tour. I usually feel like these are things where you're not supposed to be anxious or nervous about because it's just giving a tour, whatever. You already know at university, what's the big deal? I hear you, but that my body doesn't, I guess, because I'm anxious as So when I go through stuff and I feel anxious about it, and it's a thing where I think I'm not supposed to be anxious, that makes it that much worse because I feel odd for feeling anxiety and I feel weird and I feel weak, which isn't right. And then this Monday, I knew that everything I did was better than nothing. If I hadn't jumped in to do that, they wouldn't have had a teacher and the class would have had to be cancelled on that day or maybe even the entire week. It would have been okay. The fact that it would have been okay to be anxious freed me from my anxiety to a degree. And I was just like, how? What? And then teaching itself too, I was up there, I was calm, I was explaining things the way that I hope it made sense. They all passed the exam, I think, so that's great. And it just worked. It just worked out. I had no experience in this and I did it and I did a good job, and I almost canceled this entire thing, just assisting, because I felt so bad about it. The only reason I didn't cancel on it was because the only thing that makes me worse, that makes me feel worse than this kind of anxiety, is having to cancel on somebody else, that I committed to. I don't like that, so that's why I stayed. And I'm so glad I did, because turns out teaching is something I really enjoy. And I never thought I would, because I thought I would be way too anxious to do that. Anyways, that's not even the point. The point is, if we know what really triggers certain negative feelings such as anxiety, then we have a way to work with them. And I used to think that it's just anything that I'm new at that would trigger my anxiety, because often it's things that I am new at. However, it's not things I am new at. It's things I don't feel like I can do on my terms and that I don't have enough information about. I can be new at something and I can be completely fine if I have enough information, if I have what I think is enough information, if I know what I'm supposed to do, and then also if I'm left alone. and I'm able to do it on my own terms and in my own way. I wanted to add something, and it's that when the teacher asked me if I would take over the class, she also asked me if I wanted to have somebody assisting me the way I was assisting her in the first week, because again, that can be very useful. And I had to decline that offer because the idea of having somebody there with me made me nervous, and I realized, or what I was afraid of, was that I would, with having somebody there and all the other assistants, as far as I'm aware, it wasn't their first time assisting. So I think in my brain, even though deep down I am well convinced that I can do this job, but okay, so for some reason, even though I know that deep down, I knew that if I had an assistant, quote unquote, in that time, I would basically just give that person the lead again, or try to make them the lead, even though that wouldn't be the deal, so that wouldn't be okay, you know? And I don't know why I do that. I seem to have a bit of a problem with sharing responsibilities and asking for help. And if you have ADHD, I know I just called you out on that too, but it's either the entire package or it's nothing. So either I'm gonna be the teacher and I'm gonna do this by myself. That would have just been too much in that moment, right? I'm not saying if I ever would be an actual teacher in that setting, that I would not want an assistance. I would, but I just, in that moment, I needed the roles to be clear, and because even though they would have been clear, but not for me, not in my brain. So I wasn't able to I had to decline that offer. So that's also what I mean by having the option to do it just by myself and being left alone. I like when I am handed the entire package and then, okay, you do that. Of course I'm gonna do it in the way that people want me to do it, but still, you know what I mean? With this tour in the beginning, I was just having to do this tour whenever it was supposed to happen, and the tour, the way it was set up, wasn't my choice, which it was a good choice, but it wasn't. But it wasn't, nothing about this was me, and I just had to do that, and again, not on my schedule and not in my way. And I don't know how to explain it really, because in a sense it was a tour that I was giving it, so I was able to just say whatever I wanted to say. Of course, we had to hit a couple of points about every why is the administration office important and stuff, but I still was able, obviously, to bring me into this. But no, I don't know, something about it made this experience so bad, so terrible, the first Monday morning. Again, not for anybody's fault or anything. And then the second Monday, even though, yeah, I had to do something new and scary, I wasn't scared at all. I felt fine. I felt confident. For some reason, I knew this was gonna work. And it's just wild to me that just how much, because I would think, okay, it's because everything about this is new and that's what makes you nervous, and yeah, that's the problem. But then I would have also suffered on the second Sunday. So for another time, what I've learned from this is go through that information earlier to kind of take away power from this demon of fear and anxiety, because once you look at it and it gets real, you notice it's not as deep. And also, if I read it earlier, that information, if I find it to be not enough information and I want more, I can ask the teacher and be like, hey, just to clarify, when exactly is the tour gonna be? What exactly is my job? There was just too much uncertainty and too many unknown factors for me to be relaxed about this experience, and I suffered. So I learned that it's not new things necessarily that are the problem. It's that I really value information to a very not I don't think it's detailed. I just really want to know what unit is when, and so that just really helps me to be just I don't like to be in the unknown about when things are gonna happen, even though I'm fully aware it doesn't matter. If I'm prepared for whether it was this whether the tour was happening at 9 or 10 or 2 p.m. didn't matter at all. It wasn't if it was later I would do more preparation or change anything about it. So that's not what's happening at all. But the fact that I didn't know just isn't, that's the end of me. Was this the most random video ever? Yes. I think that's all. Wow. Thank you for watching if you did. tell me if you can relate to this, if you understand what I mean. But it's good to know now, because if I had not had that second Monday experience, I would just still think that the reason I was so anxious on the first Monday was because it was something new, which of course that adds to it. But that stopped me so many times from doing new or different things. I cannot tell you. I can't count them. Now I know it's not just a new element. I can deal with it. Something is new element. I can deal with this as long as I have what I think is enough information and clear instructions, and then enough information so that I can deal with it in my head, prepare, do whatever I need to do, which includes knowing exactly when something is going to start, or at which, like in which slot it is. I don't know why it does, it just does. And now that I know this, I can approach things differently and ask for that information, because they had that included in the informations we got. It just wasn't clear to me because I think I got too conflicting info out of this, and you don't like the extent. Okay, anyways, that's all. I'm just gonna go. I'm just not gonna. Okay, sorry, I rambled on long enough. Thank you so much for watching if you did.